Hello, everyone, and welcome to another exciting episode of Best MTG Decks Ever. Today, we're not going to be playing any games or showcasing any decks, but I do want to not preview, but maybe make predictions or at least kind of go over the lore of Forgotten Realms, because there is a very, very, very exciting set coming out later this year for Magic, which is going to be based around Forgotten Realms, which is one of my favorite fantasy genres, storyland universes. Yeah, I used to read these books all the time when I was a kid, and I loved them so much. So what I wanted to do was kind of go over the characters, talk about how they could possibly show up in the set, go over some of the lore and the artifacts and items that might also show up in the set too. So it's kind of making some predictions possibly. So let's start out with Elminster the Mage. So Elminster is like your typical most powerful alpha mage. He's like the Gandalf kind of Forgotten Realms. He's basically, I mean, he can have like almost any appearance that he wants, but he's basically like an old guy, you know, pointed hat, white beard and stuff. And the dude's just an all-around badass. He's got tons and tons of magic items, and his he's actually also a thief and a fighter. So in a way, he's like a tri character. But he's best known for being a mage. He's battled demons, gone to hell, gone to different planes, bedded goddesses before. The dude's just an all-around badass. So I do think that we're going to see Elminster show up as a Plainswalker. It just makes sense. I guess he could show up as a creature, but really Plainswalker is where I'm thinking that he's going to show up. Now he had lots of magical items, but they are all just kind of like a lot of them are generic. However, he did have a very, very, very signature item, which could end up showing up as an artifact or an item of some sort, and it was Elminster's ever-smoking pipe. So it was basically like a pipe, and it could do all these things. Like the base thing was it could always smoke, and he could like summon tobacco or funny grass to the pipe and smoke. It never ran out. He could just automatically like start the fire at command. It could also do some other weird interactions. He could like shoot fire out of it and do some stuff like that. So that would be really cool to see this as an item or an artifact. I think it might even be even more cool if it had some sort of special ability with Elminster's Plainswalker card, but who knows? Now, this next character, he's a little bit lesser known. I mean, he's still super, super, super popular, and I know, like, if I'm going in order of, like, most iconic, I would be hitting Drist right now, but really, Artemis was one of the characters that I had liked the most. He was just like this plain human, grew up in some kind of like desert town, like as like what was the Calimshan, Memnon and Calimshan, yeah. And he's just like a badass assassin. He's got all these magic items. He's completely obsessed with beating Drist. I mean, and he's teamed up with him a number of times. The dude's a very complex character. He's got a lot of complexity to him, where it's like he finds himself on the good guy's side sometimes, on the bad guy's side. And it's just an all-around awesome character. And he's kind of has like the same... He's basically like Drist's human version, like anti-hero type thing, and he's got two blades, kind of fights in a similar way. Now, he has a number of magical items, but one of the very unique ones he has is Charon's Sword. And Charon's Sword is like this sword, and he has to have like this gauntlet that holds it, and the gauntlet can like reflect back spells or absorb them, or it's basically like a wizard killer. So I would love to see this appear as an item in the game. Artemis is not likely to be a Plainswalker because he's not really like a caster, so maybe he might show up as a legendary creature. I would love it. He shows up as a legendary creature, well designed, poorly designed. I'm getting full art card. Take my money. Charon's Sword is so. In addition to the hand part, it also allows you to do some other stuff like absorb people's life force and what else does it do? Oh yeah, the sentient. The sword was a sentient artifact with the powers of a +4 keen smoking longsword. Strong of will and possessed of arrogance, the sword could also intrude on the bearer's thoughts, turning them into dark and violence-inclined directions. Anyone who touched the blade or handle of the sword unprotected would need to compete with it in a battle of wills. Failure meant it would burn the flesh and skin of the wielder's hand away. The ability could be used by the bearer of the sword, but it would require prolonged contact with the victim. Without defeating the blade in a battle of wills, the only way a person could safely use the item was by covering their hand with the enchanted gauntlet, which was its counterpart. This kept the hostile sentients at bay. Upon being willed by its wielder, the sword could leave trails of ash in the air, creating temporary opaque walls to give an edge in battle. It could also to produce, I think they misspelled, a strange black glow to act as a light in the darkness, though only its wielder could see it. It also made its wielder invisible to infravision. The sword was also enchanted so that even a small nick or cut would eventually prove fatal, as the wound would fester and eventually poison the victim. It was later revealed that the sword could dominate its former wielder. Herzgo Allegni was able to utilize this ability to enslave Artemis and Terry. Claw did not reside in the thoughts of a person it dominated, but it physically prevented that person's actions and caused them great physical pain. Distance from the sword made the effect weaker. Additionally, the sword could bring the enslaved person back to life. Yeah, this isn't the life-draining one. But this was... I would love to see this show up as an artifact in the game. It would be really cool. One of the next characters that I really liked a lot was Jarrol Axel. Or Jarrol Axel. I guess that's how they're saying it here, Jarrol Axel. I always said it was Jarrol Axel, but whatever. Yeah, so he's a drow in the Underdark, and he was the leader of a mercenary company called Brigand Earth. And I'm probably mispronouncing that too. But he was kind of like similar to Artemis and Terry, but he was like the drow version. So another kind of anti-hero to Drist. I wonder how they're going to say that that's pronounced, because I've always called him Drist. 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 They just call him Drist. Okay, so I was doing it right, Drist. And yeah, there was lots of lore, lots of history with this guy. He had a ton of magical items, but I'm still not seeing him being a Plainswalker. Unfortunately, like a lot of my most beloved characters are not likely to be Plainswalkers. I guess they could, but they're not real, like, powerful magic users. Although Jarrol Axel definitely, like, had a ton of magic items. Like, he was just covered in head to toe in magical items. But he had a very signature one, which I really hope becomes an artifact in the game. Knave's Eye Patch. Let's see here. Yeah. While attuned to the Knave's Eye Patch, the wearer gained a magically enhanced eyesight, becoming able to discern more minute details within their field of view. It also shielded the wearer's mind, effectively blocking any magic that could read thoughts and even blocking unwanted telepathic communication. The eye patch also made it easier for creatures that were overly sensitive to sunlight, such as drow, driders, durgar, kobolds, kotal, troglodytes, and Magic Arena game designers to withstand it. Such creatures suffered no ill effects from exposure to sunlight while wearing a knave's eye patch. So, yeah, I don't know what kind of effect this would have in the game, but it's definitely something that, I mean, you're either going to be getting some sort of a way to counter magic or block spells or something interesting. But yeah, I really want this to be an item in the game. Like, take my money. Like, all this stuff. All these characters that I'm going over, take my freaking money. Just, I'm so scared that Wizards is going to figure out a way to ruin this. It would be hard. It would be hard. Like, you could fill a room full of troglodytes and tell them to pull this off, and it would, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a success. He also had bracers of flying daggers. So he had these bracers where he could, like, just keep throwing daggers at people, and then, like, every third dagger or every third dagger was fake, or every third dagger was real, or something like that. But anyway, he would just sit there and just throw all these daggers. Let me see this. An attuned wearer could pull 2 daggers from the bracer simultaneously at any time, which disappeared if not immediately thrown. The thrown daggers remained solid while in flight, and when they either hit or missed a target after, they immediately disappeared. Yeah, I'm pretty sure there was something about the daggers kind of like every third one being fake, or he could throw like fake ones or something. But anyway, I would love to see this in the game. I would love for these items to have a special effect when equipped to the character. So, like, if they had Jarrol Axel, I'm gonna be saying Jarrol Axel for a while, but Jarrol Axel, like, if you could get the creature, his creature card on the board, and equip it with these, like, it gets, like, even more powerful. That would be awesome. It would. Yeah, I would love to see that. Oh, God, the hype. All right, so now for everyone's most iconic, most famous, probably even in competition with Elminster, is Drist. He's a drow that went against everything. He escaped the drow gods or goddesses and escaped the drow matriarchy, and because in drow society, the women are in charge and they oppress the men, and he's like this badass warrior wielding 2 swords. We'll go over those, and he's got and also his iconic figurine with Gwynwiver. I think that's how it's pronounced. But yeah, he's one of the companions, and the companions, it was like him, Wolfgard, Catty Bre, the dwarf, the Bruno Battlehammer, and then the little halfling guy. Well, we'll get into that later. But those were like the team. So we might even see some like companion mechanic, but I don't even like that mechanic, really, honestly. But yeah, so this guy, I hope to... And again, he's probably not going to be a Plainswalker. He's probably going to be a creature. But he has to... It's going to be legendary, and he has to be a freaking badass. Like, it's got to be something amazing. Because, God, just please don't ruin this. Please. My God, please. So he had 2 swords. He had Twinkle and Icing Death. And Twinkle had the powers of a Defender +5 Scimitar, or a +2 defending scimitar. Twinkle had a star-cut azure sapphire on its pommel, and when it detected danger nearby, it softly glowed blue. It was partially empathic and could impart weak base emotions upon its wielder. Yeah, like to see this as an item. It would be cool is if both of these items together were equipped to the same creature, you got some sort of interaction. I mean, it would be hard to pull that stuff off, but when it did, it should be significant. Yeah, and then Icing Death. Icing Death is a +3 scimitar. It had the powers of a frost weapon. When the sword detected or fed on fire, it started glowing with a pale blue shimmer. It was also a frostbrand weapon. The weapon absorbed fire and heat, protecting its wielder against fire. It also had the ability to extinguish magical fire. For example, it extinguished a portion of the wall of fire conjured by the powerful demon Urtu, which we'll get into later, and completely negate Valendra Shadowmantle's fireball in Gauntle Grim. However, it could also be set on fire in order to harm trolls, which is weird, though this was only when the magic of the blade was being repressed. So, yeah, these are famous blades wielded by Drist. Now, the most famous, I think, artifact that he had was a little figurine of a Black Panther, and he could call forth Gwynwiver, or Gwynwiver, but it was a unique figurine of wondrous power, in that the statuette summoned its creature rather than transform into it. This could be due to the strange circumstances of its creation and the uniqueness of the beast, a particularly intelligent and powerful panther. She could be summoned by calling her name to the black onyx figurine for up to 12 hours of every 48-hour period, although it was possible for her to be summoned for longer than that, or before the cycle of 48 hours began again. It was very draining and probably unwise to do so. Gwynwivar also had the power to transport any creature she touched to and from her astral home to the ethereal plane. And, yeah, this has to be an artifact. It would be kind of cool if it had some sort of like jade statue effect where it started out as an artifact, but then you could turn it into Gwynwivar. And it would have to be badass because the Panther, like if you ever read the stories, you know, is just tearing shit up. So now we're going to be getting into the companions. We've got Catty Bre. She was a human. She fought alongside Drist. She had a magical bow that was just kind of like a badass bow. She was always tearing shit up. She was adopted by Bruno Battlehammer. So she was a human female, but she was adopted by a dwarf. And she wielded... There were two magic items that were kind of famous with her. She had Talmeril, and it was... Heartseeker was a beautifully crafted elven longbow, +3, made of polished wood. The elven craftsman made the bow so strong that even stone cannot scratch the marvelous wood, and the deep finish of its polish can be returned by a single brush of the hand. And the quiver, the bow, was also accompanied by the quiver of Anariel, which contained 20 +1 alchemical silver arrows which never ran out. When an arrow was fired from Heartseeker, it became a whistling streak of silver light. Arrows launched from Talmeril could easily bury themselves halfway into stone, leaving a burned scorch mark. After a few minutes, arrows fired from Talmeril magically dissolved, which caused a minor hissing sound. After the spell plague, the arrows were depicted as having a lightning effect. Additionally, the arrows could apparently be enchanted with light to create a torch. So yeah, it's a cool bow. I don't really care if we see this as an item, but still, nonetheless, I included it as it was sort of iconic with her. And Drist even used the bow several times in the lore. A little bit more cool was Casa Dia. Casa Dia was this sword that made the wearer like have bloodlust and want to go into battle and kill a bunch of stuff. And that showed up in the stories several times. And yeah, maybe that would be kind of cool to have as an item. But, you know, she's not really one of my favorite characters, and the items never really stuck with me that much. We had Wolfgard. He's like your typical, stereotypical barbarian, just some, you know, like big Conan type dude. He had a big old, although I guess he didn't have an axe. He had a big-ass hammer. And, yeah, Aegis Fane was his big hammer. But, yeah, I mean, he's just a bruiser. He's not going to probably be a Plainswalker or anything. But Aegis Hammer was, just a big old hammer that smashed shit. The head of this beautifully cold-forged weapon was made from mithril, and the shaft was made from adamantite. A diamond coating was magically adhered to the entire weapon after its forging. The head was engraved with magical inscriptions, which were covered by the symbols of dwarven gods. Yada yada yada. Aegis Fane was specifically attuned to its wielder Wolfgard and would magically return to his hand upon his telepathic command, like Thor's hammer. This guy is really, I mean, he's just like Conan the Barbarian mixed with Thor. I didn't really care that much for him. A character that I liked a lot more was Bruno Battlehammer. He's kind of like your typical dwarf, like, there he is, just sitting there. Like, is he picking his nose? Okay, looked like he was picking his nose. He adopted Catty Bre, and he just had that typical dwarf, grumpy, stubborn type thing. I mean, I'm partial to dwarves. I would like to see this as a character. I guess a lot of these characters are very stereotypical, like Regis the halfling. He's just like your typical halfling, little sneaky little character getting away with shit with luck and, whatever. Next is Urtu. He's a demon, and I'll just read. Urtu was a Balor. Okay, the Balors are the second most powerful class of the true Tanari demons after the Demon Lords. He was 12 feet tall, covered in red scales, had a large pair of bat-like wings and a tail, and had a horned ape-like head with a dog-like muzzle. When he was in the throes of lust for power, he drooled an acidic saliva. His voice was gravelly, guttural, and harsh. And he just kind of looks like a big old demon. But he was Drist, kind of arch enemy, and he just kind of represented an antagonist that was almost just like some sort of force of nature, a complete embodiment of evil. And let's see. Urtu was immune to flames, of course, and his affinity to them allowed him to conjure a flaming whip and a ring of fire when needed. Like all Balors, Urtu emitted an aura of fear and was a capable strategist. He carried a Vorpal sword that appeared as a bolt of lightning and was resistant to magic. He was just a badass. Can't wait to see what kind of demon. I mean, he's probably going to be a red demon or a black demon or a red and black colored demon. Don't think he's going to be a Plainswalker. I'm kind of interested to see like how many Plainswalkers they might have in this set. But yeah, so this is probably going to be another legendary thing. He had Crenshabon. It was this super powerful artifact. I kind of hope that this ends up being an artifact in the game. Crenshabon was a vile relic of immense power, a crystal shard that drew its magical energy from the light of the sun. Crenshabon was a sentient artifact, and it possessed a never-ending hunger for power and glory at whatever cost. Therefore, Crenshabon was not a reasonable being. It always desired a powerful wielder, usually a corruptible mage of some sort, and greatly enhanced the wielder's power. The crystal shard also insidiously manipulated its wielder and would readily abandon them for someone more capable of furthering its goals of ultimate conquest. The relic could lure in thousands of evil-intentioned beings with its magical call, creating a grand army for its wielder and so-called master. Crenshabon had the ability to create an enormous crystalline tower known as the Crystal-Tirith, meaning Crystal Tower in Elven. In order to create the tower, Crenshabon first created an exact duplicate of itself, a square-sided crystal that sometimes glowed with a green light. The wielder then placed the copy of the shard on the ground and recited the words. I'm not going to read it out loud because I might actually invoke the power of it here on this realm. The duplicate crystal expanded, growing into the crystalline tower, still an exact image of Crenshabon, only now of mammoth proportions. The tower itself absorbed the sun's light, giving it more strength during the daytime. The tower was impervious, absorbed all attacks against its mirrored walls, and reflected them back on their source. The only vulnerable part of the tower was its heart, the pulsating crystal of strength that was used to construct the tower, and that became hidden away within the crystal tirith. The tower's very door was invisible and undetectable to any beings inherent to the present plane the tower rested upon. The shard's primary attack was on the ego, collecting slaves with promises of greatness and riches. It had little hold on paladins and goodly priests or righteous kings and noble peasants, but one who desired power and was not above deception and destruction to further their ends would inevitably sink into Crenshabon's grasp. So that'd be kind of cool to maybe like have this as something that can like take control of creatures or something, non-white creatures. That would be cool. Yeah. Gromp Bonre is not really like a character that I'm like super into, but I thought that this might end up being a Plainswalker. So Gromp Bonre was a drow, and he was the archmage of Menza Bronzin. If my memory was correct, like the wizards had some like weird clock tower thing that they would, like all of Menza Bronzin could see, like all the greater houses and stuff, and it would like tell the time of the day because they would heat the stone, and as the stone lost heat or something like that. But he was the leader of it. Yeah, he had all the regular magic items. He's gonna have a ton of stuff like that. And I guess I can read a little description of him. Gromp was austere yet handsome. He had amber eyes like his daughter Lyriel. Despite his old age, he was old even by elven standards. Gromp appeared eternally youthful due to the effects of a magical amulet in his possession that contained a piece of a unicorn's horn. As a powerful spellcaster and the archmage of the city, Gromp always wore the robe of the archmage. Oh, let's check that out. Of Menza Bronzin, a ceremonial garment that was heavily enchanted. He also displayed the badge of House Bonre at all times. Interestingly, by 1361 DR, Gromp had not been able to enter elven reverie for many decades, nor sleep. Presumably, only the power of his brooch of perpetual youth kept him alive. And there's nothing written about that. Yeah, I didn't think that there was, like, anything special, but yeah, he's got some magical robe. This chick right here might also end up being a Plainswalker. Lady Lustrial Silverhand was a human wizard who served for many years as the ruler of the open city of Silvery Moon, and later was the High Lady of the League of Silver Marches, a confederation of various states in the areas around Silvery Moon. She was a powerful mage, being one of the chosen of Mystria and one of the Seven Sisters. She was known for her love and devotion to her people, something especially unusual for many people who hold political power. Therefore, she was extremely popular in Silvery Moon, and most of her subjects would do anything in their power to prevent any harm from happening to her. She was considered a wise and fair ruler, but she did not hesitate to be ruthless when needed. So, yeah, she's just like a really powerful mage. We could see her as a Plainswalker. Never really like was into this character. Don't really care. Then there was this other weird evil guy. This guy might also end up being a Plainswalker. It's pteranthpteranthraxis, and he was just like this, I don't know, some sort of weird like psychic entity that would enter people's bodies, take control of them, and just try and gain power. So that would be a very interesting Plainswalker, because it's going to be something that like takes control of something, or maybe like a Plainswalker ability. He can like, I don't know. There's a lot of really interesting mechanic that could be used with this. Maybe even taking control of other Plainswalkers, or I don't know. This one I'm very interested to see if it makes it into the set, and also if what kind of mechanics they attach with this. But yep, that's my kind of prediction and also kind of review of Forgotten Realms. I'm really hyped about that set. I think it's coming out like late summer. But just Wizards, please don't ruin that set. This could... I think that this will be one of the hottest sets of the year, just because, I mean, maybe I'm biased just because I loved the lore and I read all these books, but I feel like it's going to be a really well-received set, just from the lore alone. And if they can manage to pull off something good with the set, yeah, it could just be iconic. I'm going to buy the shit out of this set. I'm going to love it. Yeah, just take my money, Wizards. Just don't screw it up. Hope you guys enjoyed the review of some of the iconic characters and magic items. And I guess we're all just waiting in eager anticipation to see what Wizards does with this. I hope they can pull it off. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe, and have a good day. Bye.